Smith, and we're here in the Vice offices in Brooklyn, New York. For our first story tonight, we go to Chicago. In the last 2 decades, most major cities in America have seen a dramatic drop in violent crime. The exception to the rule being Chicago, where gang violence is out of control. In 2012 alone, over 440 school-age children were shot, making it one of the deadliest places in the country for young people. In fact, things have gotten so bad that many locals have renamed their hometown Chiraq.
Chicago's in bad shape.
Bullets flew on the city's south side last night. Dozens of people have been shot.
There have been calls to deploy the National Guard.
Police attribute most of these murders to Chicago's 100,000 gang members, belonging to an insanely large and confusing assortment of gangs, sub-gangs, factions, and cliques, all of whose territory can vary from one city block to the next.
Our most dangerous spot, guys, is these vehicles. So we got to be careful. Right here, where you see the memorial on the right, that is a spot where a murder happened. Just so happened the other night, my officers got shot at right there, right across the street.
Really? Right out of the station, we started getting calls, most involving guns.
The 16-year-old brother was just threatening his family with a gun. The person with the gun is...
Looks like a 380 Lorison. Guy's under arrest, he's in the car.
Is he 14?
14 years old?
Yeah, something like that.
Despite the deputy chief's insistence that we were out on a good night, the calls kept coming in.
We've been having a lot of shootings over here. We had a murder here we were working on too. It's just what we do on a daily basis. This is a map here of the 7th District, Inglewood. What this map portrays is anything colored is a gang. In the city, we have 59 gangs, over 625 factions. We've got new breeds. We've got Black P-Stones, conservative vice lords, Mickey Cobras.
Is there anywhere on this map that isn't under gang control?
There's sections of the district where they're not fighting, but what gang would be there is covered by the color.
I look at this map and it scares the living shit out of me, to be honest. As the night got busy for the cops, we hopped out to see how it was going in one of the South Side's most notorious neighborhoods, the Village.
Is this the Village?
Yeah. Land of new craze, man.
How far does the Village extend? Like, how far can you go each side?
How fit the motherfucking eyes?
Right, what happens across Ashland? You guys...
Across that gun line, boss.
No.
Across the gun line. That gun line.
Are any of you guys armed? So. Is that a rude question?
Yeah, that's terrible.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. How hard is it to get a gun?
It's hard. You can get a gun anyway. Granny probably got one of them motherfuckers up there. They come out, they come out.
It doesn't even matter. We do like, we have our cameras and
Like this. It's like they come out, they come out.
We went for our second ride along with the night to see the Village kids turf for ourselves, which amounts to all of about 2 city blocks.
Shooting this shit on house arrest.
Al Capone and all them was doing worse than us. They was blowing up buildings and blowing up motherfucking clubs and doing massacres.
yeah, they have machine guns.
Exactly. We use the handguns in Chicago just to point that out. Why they trying to ban assault rifles. We don't use assault rifles in Chicago. We get up on you, baby.
Extended clips though
Yeah.
are popular.
Yeah, because we like to eat the body up. That's why we call it Chiraq. Now we live like them. They died for theirs, so we died for ours.
We in the hood having real wars like the army. You feel me? We're having shootouts. My mother running out the project screaming my name while 100 bullets coming my way. So I can get shot trying to look back and tell her to get out the way. But she was coming for a baby, you know what I'm saying? So rest in peace, you know.
If the rest of America got safer over the 90s, how did the gang problem here get even worse? But what turned Chicago's gang map into this pizza pie of tiny war zones? Throughout the 2000s, Chicago demolished its inner-city projects in hopes of breaking up the gangs which more or less ruled them, and relocated the residents throughout town.
From 22nd Street all the way down to 53rd was all the project buildings. So you had all the gangs and all the buildings, and when they tore those buildings down, those people went to the different neighborhoods.
Well, this was an overdue necessity due to the abhorrent abhorrent living conditions and nearly sovereign gang control within, it had unintended consequences. We talked to some former gang members from the neighborhood who asked that we hide their identities, so we did.
A lot of those guys never been outside of those buildings, but when you tear them down and then you give them section, then you tell them, hey, we got to send you out to the suburbs that you're not even used to. People telling you, oh, they from the projects and not welcoming them. And I mean,
where the violence is coming
that's
from.
where the violence
Everybody is fighting over the actual neighborhood now. You come to a neighborhood, it wasn't your neighborhood, but now you live in there, so you got to fight the people that been there, and that's where a lot of the violence coming from.
Like, amazed by how many guns there are nowadays. Was that always the case in Chicago, or has that started?
Well, guns ain't really been plentiful like that. It probably was 2 motherfucking guns out of 45 of them. We was brought up to beat your motherfucking ass. We wasn't brought up to shoot motherfuckers and shit. We was decent with our hands.
The kids now, they scared to lose.
Yeah, exactly.
They'd rather bring a gun to the table and just murder everything.
The youth are just fucked up, man. Their mentality is they don't care, period, point blank.
Ain't nobody fighting no more. Ain't nobody, you feel me, talking it out no more. The way we defend ourselves nowadays is like everybody ready to shoot it out.
We met these kids walking through rival gang territory, where they could be shot for simply showing their face. This despite the fact that they were 3 blocks away from their own homes, walking with their mom.
You just gotta watch the way you walk. Like, say for the time, if it was like 30 boys down there, there was just me and her by ourselves, and we walk down there, they'll probably run across the street, ask us where we is. If we get shot at there, we gonna want to retaliate. Because if they shoot one of our friends, now it's war. Somebody approach me, I probably gotta pop them. Before they pop me, and that's how it is out here. Because don't nobody want to talk no more. It's so easy to get a gun out here.
Chicago's gun laws are actually fairly strict, but they don't extend into the suburbs where most of the city's guns come from. Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy held a press conference in January to show off some of the 300 suburban guns his officers had confiscated since the beginning of the year.
This is representative of the firearms that we're taking off the street every single day, and in the last week, 120 firearms.
What is it about Chicago that makes it so far ahead of the other cities?
The ease by which guns are obtained. You can walk into any gun shop in Illinois, buy 10 9mm, and walk out the door, and there's only one recorded transaction on those firearms, and we don't know where those guns go. They hit the streets in enormous numbers. To me, that's just crazy.
The priest who was at the police press conference this morning is Reverend Michael Flager. He runs this church, St. Sabina's, the biggest Catholic church in Inglewood. He's also a major social activist. He's been here since the 70s, working with gang members and the police to try to solve the violence.
The proliferation of guns and the love affair with guns in the society is bizarre. Guns have become the first line offense on the street in society today. Most of the brothers out in the street don't want to shoot, don't want to use a gun to be able to survive, to go back and forth with their home. We have to deal with guns. We have to. We've ignored violence in America. We've turned our back on it because it's been primarily black and brown children. Sandy Hook wakes up America. Why? Because now the soccer mom sees Sandy Hook, the horrific tragedy it was, and identifies with those children. Well, I'm trying to figure out how do we make the soccer mom identify with the black child or the brown child in Lawndale, Englewood, Little Village, Pilsen. How do we make America identify with our children again, wherever they're at?
One local child the national media did identify with was Hadia Pendleton.
She was 15 years old. She was a majorette. Just 3 weeks ago, she was here in Washington with her classmates, performing for her country at my inauguration.
On January 29th of this year, Hadia and her friends were in a park after school when 2 gunmen ran up and began firing into their crowd. Hadia and 2 of the others were hit as everybody tried to scramble for safety. Hadia died.
I wish we could see her beautiful smile again. She will always be with us.
Hadia's death became the centerpiece of Obama's push this year for increased gun control, which Congress overwhelmingly voted down.
A minority in the United States Senate decided it wasn't worth it. So all in all, this was a pretty shameful day for Washington.
We lose in Chicago more black kids than the soldiers in Iraq. That's how dangerous it is for our kids now, living in an environment where their safety is put at peril.
State Senator Jacqueline Collins has been in office since 2002. Her district includes some of the South Side's most violent neighborhoods.
There are consequences, I believe, to failed economic and political policies that most communities of color in Chicago are facing. High unemployment, 23% or more. Failing schools. We have the closing of mental facilities, the foreclosure crisis. So certain communities seem to be targeted.
Not only has the South Side lost the majority of its schools, clinics, and public housing, they don't even have a hospital to treat all the gunshot wounds that happen here, which is doubly fucked because there are 3 hospitals in the neighborhood, all of which used to treat gunshot wounds, but stopped because it was costing them too much money. These closures are a major contributing factor to the South Side's death rate, as in the case of Damian Turner, who was hit by a stray bullet and died during a 30-minute ambulance ride uptown. Damian's sister Candace has been trying to draw attention to the situation ever since her brother's death.
The nearest hospital with a trauma center is Northwestern Hospital.
And that's way up in, it's almost in the north
That's
side.
what they took my brother Damian Turner. They're on bypass.
What is bypass?
Bypass is if you get injured, the ambulance won't bring you to their hospital if they're on bypass. He died on his way to the hospital because he had to be taken so far.
To raise awareness of his death and the crucial lack of health resources on the South Side, his friends and local activists staged a die-in at the University of Chicago's new $700 million medical center.
Most of the people that come in with gunshot wounds are uninsured, so it became more of a bottom line issue. But how do you put a price tag on a life?
Left to fend for themselves in an urban desert, many younger kids in Chicago see gangs as the only form of structure left in their communities. And if so internalize their situation, they proudly declare their city Chiraq, and themselves soldiers or savages. And who could blame them? They do live in a war zone. The South Side of Chicago is basically a failed state on the borders of the U.S.
We've turned our backs and abandoned these young brothers out in the street.
There's my wall of fame. All the guys and women that I lost.
Who's at the bottom of the wall?
That's my son. That's my son, Montreal.
These are disenfranchised communities, and it's not just a month occurrence or a year occurrence. This is decades of a lack of resources flowing into these communities.
There has been a conscious decision to let some communities fall apart as long as it's contained. That it doesn't seep over. But guess what, America? It's seeping over. Drugs is, violence is, and now poverty is, because what used to be the middle class is now poor. Wake up.
Nigeria is one of the largest oil